Module 4, Communication Cues, focus on verbal and non-verbal symbols, prepared by Halirine Laizime Ehe, BS Ed 4, Social Studies.
Good day! Hello everyone! In today's lesson, I am going to discuss about categories of non-verbal communication under Module 4. Communication cues focus on verbal and non-verbal symbols. First, we are going to know about what is non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication is the process of conveying information without the use of spoken or written words. Non-verbal communication, such as eye contact, facial expressions, gestures, posture, and body language, is used to convey messages or signals in non-verbal communication, or manual language. Non-verbal conduct may highlight specific aspects of verbal communication, much like italicizing accentuates written material. It makes use of touch, voice or paralanguage, kinesics, distance or proxemics, physical settings, and appearance or haptics. The use of time or chronemics, eye contact, staring while speaking and listening, frequent glances, fixation patterns, pupil dilation, and blink rate are further examples of Oculusics. Now, the importance of nonverbal communication is that your nonverbal cues, the way you listen, look, move, and react, teach the person that you're speaking with whether or not you care. If you're being truthful and how effectively you're listening, increased touch, clarity, and rapport result from your nonverbal signals, complementing your spoken cues. When they don't, they may cause conflict, misunderstanding, and muddled thinking. Being more aware of your own body language and nonverbal cues is essential if you want to improve your communication skills. This also applies to others' body language and nonverbal cues. You can become a better communicator and listener by being attentive of the nonverbal clues you use when speaking. Now, let's talk about the categories of nonverbal communication. There are categories of nonverbal communication. This chapter will address several categories of nonverbal communication that are of particular importance in interpersonal relationships. These categories include haptics or touch, vocalics or voice, kinesics or body movement and gestures, Oculusics or facial expressions, or the eye and face behavior, and physical appearance. Each of these categories influences interpersonal communication and may have an impact on the success of interpersonal interactions. First is haptics. Haptics is the study of touch as form of nonverbal communication. Touch is used in many ways in our daily lives, such as greeting, comfort, affection, task accomplishment, and control. You may have engaged in a few or all of these behaviors today. If you shook hands with someone, hugged a friend, kissed your romantic partner, then you use touch to greet and give affection. If you visited a salon to have your hair cut, then you were touched with the purpose of task accomplishment. You may have encountered a friend who was upset and patted the friend to ease the pain and provide comfort. Finally, you may recall your parents or guardians putting an arm around your shoulder to help you walk faster if there was a need to hurry you along. In this case, your parent or guardian was using touch for control. Several factors impact how touch is perceived. These factors are duration, frequency, and intensity. Duration is how long touch endures. Frequency is how often touch is used, and intensity is the amount of pressure applied. These factors influence how individuals are evaluated in social interactions. For example, researchers state a handshake preceding social interactions positively influenced the way individuals evaluated the social interaction, partners, and their interests in further interactions while reversing the impact of negative impressions. This research demonstrates that individuals must understand when it is appropriate to shake hands and that there are negative consequences for failing to do so. Importantly, an appropriately timed handshake can erase the negative effects of any mistakes one might make in an initial interaction. Touch is a form of communication that can be used to initiate, regulate, and maintain relationships. It is a very powerful form of communication that can be used to communicate messages ranging from comfort to power. Duration, frequency, and intensity of touch can be used to convey liking, attraction, or dominance. Touch can be helpful or harmful and must be used appropriately to have effective relationships with family, friends, and romantic partners. Consider that inappropriate touch can convey romantic intentions where no romance exists. Conversely, fear can be instilled through touch. Touch is a powerful interpersonal tool along with voice and body movement. It's also essential to understand the importance of touch on someone's psychological well-being. Next is vocalics. Vocalics. In this section, we are going to discuss vocalics, that is, vocal utterances other than words that serve as a form of communication, which communication is the process by which we share ideas or information with other people. So, our discussion will begin with vocal characteristics, including timbre. Timbre is the overall quality and tone, which is often called the color of your voice. The primary vocal quality that makes your voice either pleasant or disturbing to listen to. Next is pitch, which the placement of your voice on the musical scale, the basis on which singing voices are classified as soprano, alto, tenor, baritone, or bass voices. Next is tempo, the rate of your speech, how slowly or quickly you talk. Next is rhythm. Rhythm is the variation in the flow of your voice created by differences in the pitch, intensity, tempo, and length of word syllables. And intensity is the volume of your speech, how loudly or softly you express yourself. Next, we are going to talk about timbre under vocalics. According to Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary, timbre refers to the quality given to a sound by its overtones, such as the resonance by which the ear recognizes and identifies a voice, speech, sound. Pitch refers to the frequency range between high and low. Pitch is not generally thought of how unless an individual's pitch stands out. Like for example, if a female's vocal pitch is low, meaning might be assigned to the low pitch, as just meaning might be attached to a male voice with a high pitch. Also, pitch that is at a higher or lower end of a range will be noticed if there is a momentary or situational change to an individual's pitch that will trigger an assignment of meaning. For example, when children become excited or scared, they may be described as squealing. The situation will determine whether squealing children are thought to be excited or scared. The next one under vocalics is tempo. Tempo refers to the rate at which one speaks. Changes in tempo can reflect emotions such as excitement or anger, physical well-being, or energy level. One of the author's aunts is a brittle diabetic. When talking to her aunt, the author can detect whether the aunt's blood sugar is too low if her aunt is speaking extremely slow. Rhythm refers to the pattern used when speaking. Unusual speaking rhythms are often imitated. Consider the speaking rhythm of a surfer dude or a ballet girl. One of the most well-known forms of rhythm used in a speech was Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. More recently, the speaking rhythm of Presidents Obama and Trump are easily identifiable and often imitated by comedians. Next is intensity. Finally, intensity refers to how loudly or softly an individual speaks. Intensity can be tied to emotion. When individuals speak loudly, the increased volume may be used to convey anger, emotional distress, happiness, or heightened excitement. When individuals speak at a lower volume, the decreased volume may be an effort to diffuse an emotionally intense conversation. Lower volume could also be the result of sharing bad news, discussing taboo or sensitive topics. Like for example, when people whisper sex or she died, or conveying private information. Also, in vocalics, there are other vocal features. First is paralanguage, which voice characteristics and nonverbal vocalizations that communicate feelings, intentions, and meanings. Paralanguage is another term for vocalics and refers to extra-linguistic features involve speaking, such as the characteristics of speech just discussed, pauses and silences, and nonverbal vocalization. The next one is pauses and silences. Pauses and silences are an important part of creating meaning during an interaction. Pauses draw attention to important parts of messages. The pregnant pause is an extra long pause that precedes particularly weighty information. Pauses are a type of silence that are brief in nature, but prolonged silence, such as minutes, hours, or even days, can be used to convey meaning as well. Consider a conversation in which the other person does not respond to you. What meaning is conveyed? Is the individual thinking? Is the individual hurt, angry, or too shocked? Too shocked to speak? Myriad meanings of silence help emphasize the significance of silence and that it is as impactful as verbal communication, if not more so. And the third one is disfluences, which speech problems that keep your speech from being as smooth and flowing as it could be. Vocal fillers or verbal surrogates. Disfluences, vocal fillers or verbal surrogates are sounds that we make as we attempt to fill dead air while we are thinking of what to say next. In United States, are the most commonly used disfluencies. In conversation, these disfluencies may pass unnoticed by both the sender and receiver, but consider how the recognition of disfluencies increases when listening to a speaker who says during a speech. When giving a presentation, the speaker may even call attention to disfluencies by speaking of them directly, and audience members may become distracted by disfluencies. One of the author's classmates used to count the number of used by a particular professor who was known to frequently use when teaching. Though focusing on disfluencies may be common, it is best for the speaker to attempt to reduce an excessive amount of disfluencies and for listeners to focus on the meaning rather than and uhs. The next category that we have is Kinesics, which is the study of visible means of communicating using body language such as eye behavior, facial expression, body posture and movement, and hand gestures. Kinesics, first coined by Ray Birdwhistell, is the study of how gestures, facial expression, and eye behavior communicate. Gestures can generally be considered any visible movement of the body. These movements stimulate meaning in the minds of others. Facial expressions are another form of kinesics, which the study of visible means of communicating using bodies such as eye behavior, facial expression, and body posture and movement, and hand gestures. So, Paul Ekman and Wallace V. Friesen asserted that facial expressions are likely to communicate affect or liking. Ekman and Friesen present 7 emotions, which emotions is the physical reactions to stimuli in the outside environment that are recognized throughout the world. These emotions are often referred to by the acronym SADFISH and include surprise, anger, disgust, fear, interest, sadness, and happiness. Facial expressions are especially useful in communicating emotion. Although not all facial expression is universally recognized, people are generally able to interpret facial expressions within a context. We generally consider happiness is indicated by a smile. Smiling might, however, also communicate politeness, a desire to be pleasing, and even fear. If an individual attempts to use a smile to diffuse a volatile interaction where the individual fears being attacked verbally or physically, then the smile may be an indication of fear. In this case, the smile cannot be accurately interpreted outside of the context. In a study investigating preferences for facial expressions in relation to the Big Five personality, which is the combination of traits or qualities such as behavior, emotional stability, and mental attributes that make a person unique. Big Five personality traits, it was found that most participants showed the strongest preferences for faces communicating high levels of agreeableness and extroversion, which extroversion is an individual's likelihood to be talkative, dynamic, and outgoing. Individuals who are high in openness preferred a display of all facially communicated Big Five personality traits. In relation to females who report being highly neurotic, they preferred male faces displaying agreeableness and female faces communicating disagreeableness. Male faces communicating openness were preferred by males who were higher in. Interestingly, males reporting high levels of neuroticism had a lower preference for female faces communicating openness. This study underscores the importance of facial expressions in determining who we prefer. The next category is Oculusics, which the Oculusics is a communication involving eye behaviors such as eye contact, gaze, and avoidance. Oculusics is the study of how individuals communicate through eye behavior. Eye contact is generally the first form of communication for interactants. Consider when a stranger speaks to you in a grocery store from behind you with a question such as, "Can you reach the frozen flakes for me?" When a general question such as this is asked with no eye contact, you may not be aware that the question was meant for you. Often when discussing eye behavior, researchers refer to gaze. Research consistently demonstrates that females gaze at interaction partners more frequently than males. Also, gaze has been studied concerning deception. Early research determined the significance of eye contact in the interpretation behavior. When people gaze too long or for too little, there is likely to be a negative interpretation of this behavior. However, later researchers acknowledged that there is a much greater range of acceptable gazing as influenced by verbal communication. The next category of nonverbal communication is gestures. Kinesics serve multiple functions when communicating, such as emblems. These are the kinesics that are clear and unambiguous and have a verbal equivalent in a given culture. Next is illustrators. These are the kinesics that emphasizes or explain a word. Next is affect the space. These are the kinesics that show feelings and emotions. And regulators, these are the kinesics that help coordinate the flow of conversation. The first one is emblems. Many gestures are emblems. You may recall from earlier in the chapter that gestures are clear and ambiguous and have a verbal equivalent in a given culture. Only a handful of emblematic gestures seem to be universal. For example, a shrug of the shoulders to indicate, "I don't know." Most emblems are culturally determined, and they can get you into difficulty if you use them in other countries. In the United States, some emblematic gestures are the thumb up and out hitchhiking sign, the circle thumb and index finger OK sign, and the V for victory sign. However, be careful of using these gestures outside the United States. Next is illustrators. While emblems can be used as direct substitutions for words, illustrators help emphasize or explain a word. Recall the Smash Mouth lyric in All Star. She was looking kind of dumb with her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead. That L gesture is often used to illustrate loser. Next is affect displays. Affect displays show feelings and emotions. Consider how music and sports fans show enthusiasm. It is not uncommon to see grown men and women jumping up and down at sports events during a particularly exciting moment in a game. However, there are different norms depending on the sport. It would simply be inappropriate to demonstrate the same nonverbal gestures at a golf or tennis game as a football game. The next is regulators. Regulators, as discussed earlier, are gestures that help coordinate the flow of conversation, such as when you shrug your shoulders or wink. Head nods, eye contact or aversion, hand movements, and changes in posture are considered to be turn-taking cues in conversation. Individuals may sit back when listening but shift forward to indicate a desire to speak. Eye contact shifts frequently during a conversation to indicate listening or a desire to speak. Head nods are used as a sign of listening and often indicate that the speaker should continue speaking. And the last category that we have is the physical appearance. Although not one of the traditional categories of non-verbal communication, we really should discuss physical appearance as a non-verbal message. Whether we like it or not, our physical appearance has an impact on how people relate to us and view us. Someone's physical appearance is often one of the first reasons people decide to interact with each other in the first place. Danny, Ivy, and Sean Wall argue that physical appearance is a very important factor in nonverbal communication. The connection between physical appearance and nonverbal communication needs to be made for two important reasons. The first reason is the decisions we make to maintain or alter our physical appearance reveal a great deal about who we are, and the next one is the physical appearance of other people impacts our perception of them. How we communicate with them, how approachable they are, how attractive or unattractive they are, and so on. In fact, people ascribe all kinds of meanings based on their perceptions of how we physically appear to them. Everything from your height, skin tone, smile, weight, and hair or color of your hair, style, lack of, and etc. can communicate meanings to other people. And that's all for our discussion for today. Thank you for listening and watching. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.